The problems for my videos can be downloaded from my website, tonybell.com. Go to the website, click the PDF link. You'll see there's no sign in, no sign up, nothing like that. Just 100+ pages of accounting exercises. Many of the exercises are free and open, about 40%. And if you're working through those and finding you're getting great value out of them, you might consider joining and getting a channel membership that has access to the other 60% of the videos. All right, let's jump into today's exercise. Let's take a run through problem 11.3a, a transfer pricing problem. Phonytel Inc. was a massive media company that controlled a cable company, a wireless data network, and several other related businesses. So sounds like a complicated web of companies. That's how transfer pricing works. And you're wise, if you know you're doing a transfer pricing, to try to draw a diagram of like what the various companies are and where they sit and what the relationships to each other are. So I'll try to do that as we go. So Phonytel Inc. was a highly decentralized organization. That phrase will come into play a lot when you have transfer pricing problems, where managers were encouraged to make decisions that were most profitable for their own divisions. One of Phonytel Inc.'s subsidiary companies, Phonytel Data. All right, so we've already got two companies. We've got Phonytel Inc. They look like the parent company. Then we've got Phonytel Data. That's the next company down, I think. Okay, one of Phonytel Inc.'s subsidiary businesses was Phonytel Data, an installer of data servers. Phonytel Data's manager, Steve Frost, had a large job that would require the installation of 2,000 servers. The request received 3 bids, one from Phonytel Networking, a subsidiary of Phonytel Inc., okay, one from Little Guys Data, and one from big name competitor. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's I already want to like draw a little part of this. So we've got Phonytel Inc., which I'm just going to call PI, actually, rather than writing Phonytel all the time. PI, that's the parent company. And then we got Steve Frost, who's Phonytel Data. Phonytel Data, that's below them. And Phonytel Data is looking for 3 bids, one from Phonytel Networking, one from, which is obviously part of our company, one from Little Guys Data, and one from big name competitor. Okay, so we're taking 3 bids. Phonytel Data is, 1 bid's coming in from us, so Phonytel Networking. So 3 bids, one from Phonytel Networking, one from, what was it, Little Guys Data. Little Guys Data. And one from big name competitor. And obviously, Phonytel Data reports up to Phonytel Inc. Oh my goodness. These questions do tend to be a tangled web. If you looked at my last video where I introduced the concept of transfer pricing, we looked at some Kraft Foods subsidiaries, and if you look at the whole company, it is a web of companies and divisions. It's crazy, but they would have lots of transfer pricing issues. Anyway, the request received 3 bids, one from Phonytel Networking, a sub of Phonytel Inc., one from Little Guys Data, and one from big name competitor. Here are the bids. Phonytel Networking bid $1,800, and the company would purchase the processors from Phonytel Chips. Oh my goodness, there's another subsidiary of Phonytel Inc. The product would be of very high quality. Okay, so not only do we buy, or they're bidding, but they're going to buy from Phonytel Chips, which of course is relevant to us at Phonytel Inc. And their bid is $1,800. So the bid here is $1,800. Little Guys Data, and it says the company would purchase the processors from Phonytel Chips. Okay, Phonytel Chips is underneath. So I've colored them red. Red is all us, right? We're all under the Phonytel Inc. umbrella. So if Little Guys Data wins the bid, they're going to be buying stuff from Phonytel Chips. And their bid is just $1,600. All right, so their bid is $1,600. And it notes the final product would be of equal quality to that produced by Phonytail Networking. So already we're like, wait, we can get a product for, we're Steve Frost, Phonytail Data, we're here. And we can choose $1,800 or $1,600 for equivalent quality products. Of course, we're going to want the cheaper one if they're both equally good. But you can see the tension here is like, shouldn't we buy our own stuff? That's the dilemma here. Shouldn't we buy our own stuff? Okay, let's look at the big name competitor bid. They're bidding $1,550, and the company would manufacture its own parts, so they're not going to buy stuff from Phonytail chips. So that makes the deal a little worse, right? We don't get the internal sale of chips, and it says the product would be of equal quality and high quality as the same as what we would get from our own internal supplier, Phonytail Networking, and they're only bidding $1,550. So let's put their bid up there, $1,550. Okay, so I hope you're seeing the tension here. Obviously, if you're just purely price-based and they're equally good products and you're Steve Frost, you would just go, let's take the cheapest one, $1,550. But clearly there's something going on here where you might want to take the internal bids. Let's read on. Frost was frustrated by the bids and phoned Kiana Chang, the manager of Phonytail Networking. So again, Frost is Phonytail D. What does the D stand for again? Data. Frost is Phonytail Data. He phones Chang, Phonytail Networking, about her uncompetitive bid and says, how on earth is it that the only internal bid is by far the highest? You're nowhere near capacity. Oh, not near capacity. If you watched my previous video, and I hope you did, you know what that means. If a company is not, if they have excess capacity, which clearly Kiana Chang and Phonytail Networking does have, they should be pricing at variable cost. Transfers should happen at variable cost. That way the company makes the smartest, most profitable decisions, as we will demonstrate here. Shouldn't you be cutting me a deal? You've got to drop below $1,550 or I'll buy from BNC, big name competitor. Chang replied, look, I understand where you're coming from, but I have margins to protect. I can't simply offer you a better deal. The bosses are stressing a focus on higher margins and higher average selling prices. I can't tell all my salespeople to pitch the high end only to kill the firm's average selling price just to make you guys look good. Frustrated, Frost called Tegan Bertuzzi, the CFO of the parent company. So now this Tegan Bertuzzi's up at here, Phonytail Inc., and the CFO of the parent company. I'll have a look at the issue, said Bertuzzi, and she noted the following details. Phonytail Data would incur $300 in variable costs on top of its purchase price and sell the installation for $2,400 per server. Okay, so they're going to sell out to customers for $2,400. So when they get their thing, they have $300 of cost, and they're going to sell to customers, there's some outsiders, for $2,400. So that's important to know. Like if they buy internally for $1,800, well, they add $300 in cost, so that's $2,100 their total cost, right? $1,800 what they pay if they bought the internal bid. They're still making money here, just not as much as if they bought from the outsiders. Okay. Phonytail Networking's variable cost would be $1,400 and included the cost of processors purchased from Phonytail chips. So Phonytail Networking, their cost is $1,400 and their revenue is $1,800. So they make $400 on this deal. And that's, Kiana Chang, again, tangled web of people, but Kiana Chang maximizing her own profits, which fair enough. That's, typically what they're going to want to do. Phonytail Chips sold this type of processor for $500. Their margins were typically 20%. So 500 times 20% means they're making $100 on the deal, meaning their cost is $400. So again, they sell their chip for $500 and their cost is $400. And I guess they're involved over here. Now, we're not privy to Little Guy's data costs. We're not privy to BNC's costs because they're competitors. So, and it's not relevant to us, but we're the red company, right? We're Tegan Frost, or Tegan Bertuzzi, pardon me, I'm getting my names mixed up. We're Tegan Bertuzzi, or at least taking on her shoes. Like, what should she do here? That's ultimately going to be the question. Now, first, it says, give the dollar advantage or disadvantage of accepting each deal for the parent company, Phonytel Inc. All right, so how much money ultimately does Phonytel Inc. make, whether they take the deal from internally, Phonytel Networks, whether they take the deal from Little Guys Data, or whether they take the deal from big name competitor. Okay, let's go through them. Let's say we take the deal from Phonytel Network. We'll analyze that deal here. Let's analyze the deal from Little Guys Data here. And let's analyze the deal from big name competitor here. And there's really three subsidiaries we're worried about. Looking at it from the, again, top level Phonytel Inc. parent company profits. So Phonytel Inc.'s profits, if we take the deal, the bid from Phonytel Networks, Little Guys Data, big name competitor, that's what we're looking at. And to do it, we'll break it down into our sub companies. So PC, what is the name of that sub again? Where is it? Phonytel Chips. Phonytel Chips profit. If we take the deal from Phonytel Networks, Phonytel Chips will be purchased. We make $100 on that deal. So $100 because Little Guys Data, if we take that deal, we get $100 there. Big name competitor, we don't get anything. Okay, well, what about Phonytel Networks profit? Again, their total cost is $1,400. They're selling it to us. They're bidding $1,800. So their profit is $400 if we take their bid. Little Guys Data, we don't make any money. Phonytel Networks doesn't make any money. And obviously, big name competitor, we don't make any money. Now, what about PD's profit? This is Steve Frost's division, Phonytel Data profit. Let's see. So if they take the deal from Phonytel Networks, they're bidding $1,800. So you pay $1,800 plus you add $300 to your costs. So it's $2,100 in total. $2,100 in total, and you're selling it for $2,400. You're making $300 on the deal. Little Guys Data, they bid $1,600. You're adding $300 of your cost. So that's $1,900. $2,400 you're selling it for. It's cost you $1,900 in total. That's $500 in profit there. And big name competitor, $1,550 is their bid. You had $300 of your own cost, so that's $1,850. Selling for $2,400, that's $550 in profit. So you can see this is where Steve Frost lives, right? This is Steve Frost. This is Kiana Chang, and we don't know who the CEO of or the head of Phonytel Chips is. Well, you can see what Steve Frost is looking at. He's just looking at this line. Like, he exists for this line. He's like, well, if I buy from Phonytel Networks, I'm only making $300. If I buy from big name competitor, I'm making $550. But the total for the company, right, the Phonytel Inc., which is where Tegan Bertuzzi resides, Tegan Bertuzzi's looking at it as a whole and going, well, the company's making $800 extra if we take Phonytel Networks. We're making $600 if we take Little Guys Data, and $550. And again, remember, this is times 2,000. There's 2,000 of these servers. So, times 2,000 equals 1.6 million versus 1.2 million versus 1.1 million. So the dollar advantages are clear, right? So you should take Phonytel Networks. It's $200 better than Little Guys Data. It's $250 better than big name competitor. Or in total, it's $400,000 better than Little Guys Data, and it's $500,000 better than big name competitor. If you're Tegan Bertuzzi, you like the internal deal. You want the internal deal to happen, but the incentives are all wrong, right? Steve Frost certainly doesn't like it. He thinks he's getting screwed, and he kind of is. He's got a point, and that's the purpose of these transfer pricing dilemmas. So give the dollar advantage and disadvantage of accepting each deal for the parent company, Phonytel Inc. They're better off in all cases, right? Like, they should want them doing this job. They're all profitable jobs, but you can see the internal job is the most profitable, big name competitor is the least profitable, and you can see it on a per unit basis and in total there. What are Tegan Bertuzzi's options here? What should she do? Well, okay, what are some options? And this is just like puzzle your way through. What could she do? One is, and this is a very logical thing, a lot of companies would do this, force the internal deal through. Why would you want to force the internal deal through? You force Steve Frost, you say, you got to take the internal bid, Steve. Too bad for you. What's the advantages? Well, it's the most profitable. That's the obvious and clear advantage, right? The company makes the most money, and there's brand reasons for this. You know, you imagine, if you think of this as, I know it's sort of a funny example where we have all these fake companies that I've made up here, phony name, right? But you imagine, let's just put Dell or some big tech, big server company. Dell shows up and they install a bunch of Lenovo servers. No way, Dell's going to sell Dell products. So when Dell, Phonytail Data, when Dell Data shows up, they're going to sell Dell boxes to you. The fact that they would be, Dell would sell some Samsung stuff would be weird, right? It's bad for the brand. So there's brand reasons why you would want to force the deal through. What about disadvantages of forcing the deal through? Well, certainly Steve Frost feels bad, right? Phonytail Data feels like, hey, we're getting squeezed. You're picking a winner. It's bad for us. And sort of going with that, the company says it's decentralized. So decentralized means Tegan Bertuzzi doesn't call the shots. She lets the subsidiaries run as they would, and there's advantages to saying you are your own CEO, you're an independent company, we want you to run as an independent company, you are a profit center, do what's best for your own bottom line, and that's great. And then you say do what's best for your own bottom line, except for this one, right? And it's sort of like loses some of the benefits of decentralization if you're saying you're coming down from on high saying you're forced to do this deal this way. That's negative, certainly. That's a disadvantage. Option 2, let the companies do what's best for them, right? And in other words, basically, Steve Frost is going to take the best bid, the cheapest bid, which is big name competitor, and we end up in the worst spot. But it might be worth it for the company. This is a $500,000 bid. I don't think so, but it could be worth it for the company to say, no, decentralization is important to us. So again, advantages of like letting the chips fall where they may is maintains decentralization. And in this case, Steve Frost is happy. He gets to pick the best bid. And presumably, the bidder, Tegan Chang, is fine with it. She obviously would know the market and know that her bid was a little higher, although it could cause internal company problems, right? You're not buying your own stuff. It could cause internal problems. And often when an advantage is on one side, it's a disadvantage on the other side. Least profitable. The least profitable option gets chosen. There's branding issues, as we've mentioned above. So yeah, there's a lot of issues with letting the company do what's best for them. A third option here certainly exists, and that's just some midpoint, right? We can say, you got to do an internal deal, but maybe we renegotiate the price. So force internal deal, at a different price. And here, like, tons of options exist. So let's just think about the options that you could do it at. You could say, okay, we're going to make Phonytail Networking sell to Phonytail Data, but we're going to make them match the best bid. Right? We're going to just have them come in at $1,550 and look, your cost is $1,400 and we won't penalize you, Tegan Bertuzzi. We won't even consider this part of your sales. We'll just consider this a weird side deal and your numbers don't get hurt, right? Because margins are like percentages. Well, you're taking a big markdown here. Your percentages are all lower. Your statistics are off. We could say, okay, we need to do the deal internal, but don't worry about your numbers, right? We won't count these numbers against you. That's definitely a plausible option. Force the deal through at $1,550. We could, well, we looked at the implications of forcing the deal through at $1,800. That was option one. Or we could have them negotiate a price, right? We could literally say, okay, $1,550 is too low, maybe $1,800 is too high. What's a good middle ground? And we could negotiate a price between them. So it has a lot of the advantages and disadvantages that we've already mentioned. The big advantages are you could potentially, well, you will be the most profitable because, again, if we negotiate a different price between them, our overall profits are locked in. They're going to be $800 a unit, $1.6 million in total. So it is the most profitable option, whether, you know, Phonytail Data is showing more profit or Phonytail Networking showing more profit. So that's desirable for the company. The disadvantage is very much the same as before. You lose decentralization. If it's a negotiation, negotiations are time consuming, can be perceived as unfair, can be perceived as playing favorites, right? There can be all kinds of internal problems. Now, let's just read on. So it says, what are Tegan Bertuzzi's options? We've sort of looked at three, I think, legitimate options. What should she do? I think ultimately, and in my opinion, it's clear, this deal needs to be internal. And there are disadvantages to that, like why did you even go out for bids if it was always going to be an internal deal? But just when you think of the logic of this, why would you, again, if I'm Dell, why would I be installing Samsung equipment when I have just as good Dell equipment ready to go? Doesn't make any sense to me. So you would think, this ought to be done internally. The fact that it's not is harmful. So I would really hone in on option 1 or 3 for that reason. Now, which one could you go with? Honestly, as a professor, I would accept just about anything logical, right? The student sort of follows through logical. I'm more looking for the analysis than I am for like, I picked number 1 because like, I want them to have a logical reason why they picked number 1, but I want to see the analysis of multiple options here. All right, we've done it. Long video. I hope the video was useful. Kind of an interesting and challenging issue, transfer pricing. I hope the video helped, and if it did, I hope you'll consider hitting one of those buttons. See you in the next video. Bye-bye. The next video in our series is right up here, and if you want a supercut of all of the videos in this series, that's the one down below.